Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the Empowered Mothers Network podcast. So there's been a little bit of a gap between episode 7 and episode 8, like we're talking a few years here. So after quite a few months of umming and ahhing about it, I've decided to resurrect the Empowered Mothers Network podcast. I think the timing now feels quite ripe to bring it back. Sort of all my children have been birthed and the youngest is about to turn 3. So I've got a little bit more time now to devote to the podcast, which I never really had back when I launched it, because my eldest two then were still quite young and time was very tight. So it's starting to slowly free up a little bit. So it feels like the right time to bring it back, I think. So I'm on the lookout for people to have conversations really with for this podcast, because I think right now in the world, we all know the world is like a mess right now. So I feel like to have conversations with people that need to be had right now in the world. Obviously this podcast is designed to go out to mothers, hence empowered mothers. And so as mothers, we are raising the next generation of people. So I feel that, we need to kind of step into our power more than ever now, as mothers raising the next generation and as people individually. So if you want to be part of the conversation, because this is a network, then definitely get in touch. So at the beginning of this year is kind of when I relaunched Empowered Mothers Network. And during this time, I've decided to streamline things as much as possible, which, again, if you've been on the website, you see the 10-day simplicity challenge, minimalism, living a more simpler life. Is kind of a big part of what I'm talking about at Empowered Mothers Network. And, keeping things simple and streamlining things is also pretty important when you have 3 kids here. So we do have an Instagram account for Empowered Mothers Network. But it's not, I think at the beginning of the year, I went gung-ho in, kind of making content for Instagram. And as many people have realised, creating content for Instagram and Facebook or whatever, is that nobody was really seeing it, let alone being able to engage with it. So the Instagram account is still there, and I will put, I just update it as and when, really, because there was so much time and energy going into it and it wasn't sort of seen by anybody. So I will put things on it announcements and news and things as and when, but it's not somewhere where I'm going to be really active through Empowered Mothers Network on Instagram. So the best way to keep in touch, and also be notified when there's a new podcast episode and things like that, is going to be through the email list, which I have over here on the website. So we've got the 10-day simplicity challenge is on the website as well. That will sign you up to the email list, or you can just go on the website. Any of the blog posts as well, you can sign up there. We've also got on the website the New Mama Starter Kit. So that's basically a load of content I made years ago when it was more focused on new mums. I made things like worksheets, ebooks, there's a couple of meditations on there. What else is there? I think a lot of it was PDFs as well, all sorts of little things to help you. So if the New Mama Starter Kit is where you're at with motherhood, then go on the website and you can find a link to that in the menu at the top, if that's of use to you. And the email list is where I'm going to be kind of announcing new podcast episodes and sharing news, anything else that's useful. And hopefully at some point I would like to feature mums and their businesses as well, both via the website and the email list. So that's the best way to stay in touch. So primarily, excuse me, primarily it's going to be the email list and the podcast, this is kind of introductory episode. It's not all going to be like this, but this is just me whiffling really badly on this one. So, yeah, restarting the podcast came with its own conundrum, which I see a lot nowadays, which is whether people prefer listening to podcasts or they prefer watching them. So, yeah, let me know, please. Do you prefer watching a podcast like on YouTube or listening to it, saying something like Spotify or Apple Music or something like that? But I end up like watching them on YouTube. A lot of the podcasts I have found the most useful, like the Minimalist podcast and the Know Thyself podcast, I always watch them on YouTube. And I don't know if that's just me or like if other people prefer it too. So I'd love to know which you prefer. So this is why at the moment I am attempting this time, because if you go back and see the first 7 podcast episodes that I did for EMN, they were all just recorded without my face. So this time I'm trying it with my face in it, and we'll put it on YouTube because, I mean, yeah, I could actually put it on YouTube without my face on because I think the minimalists are doing that now, but I would be really interested to know whether people prefer listening to a voice or whether you kind of just want to watch it as a video on YouTube. So back to the original topic of today's podcast, which is about pivoting and changing direction. So some of the Instagram posts that I've put out for Empowered Mothers Network have already talked a little bit about the change in direction, and I've mentioned it, 1 or 2 times before. So if you're not aware, originally the focus for Empowered Mothers Network was on like birth and postpartum, and I spoke about that for a good couple of years. I think between having baby number 2 and number 3, I think. But yeah, I've obviously personally moved out of that point in my life now, and the focus is changing. So there's still plenty of content on the website relating to birth and postpartum. I've basically got all the blog posts I've written in the last, I think it's about 11 or 12 years. And they're all on the website one way or another. So there's a lot on birth and postpartum. There's also a lot on spirituality. Then there's all the really old ones, which are like sort of green cleaning and household type posts, like proper mumsy household type posts. And then I think I've probably got rid of most of the website related ones because they're not really relevant. I mean, you might find some if you're really into how to set up a WordPress website blog post that's horrendously outdated now, because that's nothing how it works anymore. But there's still plenty of content, and like I say, I've got the new Mama Starter Kit for that phase of motherhood. But now now we're sort of changing direction a bit. The topics are a little bit broader, and the main emphasis is more on like health and wellness and building community as well. So it's open a bit more to mothers at different stages of motherhood. So my aim is still to support mums, just not specifically new mums anymore. I think the way the world is now, it's like we really need to have each other's backs more, and I think that applies to the whole spectrum of motherhood, not just the early days. And I know the early days can be an absolute shitter, but they're still hard. Going forward, obviously your kids get older, you have different challenges, that some things get easier and then some challenges happen that you didn't have earlier. So I want to kind of support people who, want to take responsibility for their own health and well-being and their own development, not just as a mother, but as a person as a whole in the world today. Somebody who doesn't want to be like passive, you know, I don't want to have life happen to me, and you want to kind of be more of a co-creator in your own life. And again, this is a path I'm on kind of personally at the moment, and have been for a while now. I've found a lot as well, the things I write about and the things I'm sharing are quite influenced now by Stoic philosophy. So you may or may not be familiar with Stoic philosophy, but I'm hoping to incorporate it more into the ethos of this site. I know if you have looked into Stoic philosophy before and you look kind of on the surface, it can come across as quite masculine, because a lot of the philosophers and thinkers that were involved in Stoicism and are promoted today, many of them were male, but not all of them. There are some great videos, like Ryan Holiday's made quite a few good videos about women who have been involved in Stoicism. But again, with history, you get the thing of it's not always as well documented, you know, prominent women of that time rather than the men. So sometimes, and some people I know on the internet do have that viewpoint of Stoicism as a masculine thing. I think there are a lot of ways that a Stoic path can benefit them, people who are either drawn to motherhood or caregiving in general, and it can help us gain a lot of clarity at, you know, quite a confusing time in life. We're going to talk about pivoting just briefly today after I've whiffled on enough. So yeah, that was my kind of demonstration of EMN, and it's kind of pivoted somewhat. So what about pivoting anyway? So not just in terms of like work or business, but as mothers, I think it's something we're quite required to do it quite a lot, pivoting. So especially when the kids are small, you know, the kids are unpredictable, and plans inevitably change at the last second. As well, and then if you're like neurodiverse like me, then it can be quite challenging as a mother to like deal with that situation as well. All sorts of noises going on now. So I feel like pivoting is like, it's often seen as a bad thing, you know. So like if we change direction, it's seen as like us quitting or not being persistent enough, or we didn't give it enough time, which of course like sometimes that is the case, but not always. You know, sometimes we spend like a few years helping a particular group of people or solving a particular problem, and then, you know, this can end up changing after a while for either external reasons, like maybe the problem no longer exists, or you physically move away from the location you were serving people, or the demographic that you're serving changes the spending habits, you know, if there's a cost of living crisis. But it can also be internal ones as well. But life doesn't really stay like so static. It changes and evolves as we do. So we have to be prepared that like sometimes old parts of us will drop away, and old habits need to be replaced, and old ways of doing things just don't work anymore. And we kind of have to change and adapt. So there is a fine line between changing direction and not being sure of it, I think. So like if you're unsure of something, that more shows as like pivoting like repeatedly over a shorter period of time. And I get that because I've been there, I've done that. You know, you'll try sort of one thing, and then not give it too long a time to really settle in, and then think it's not working and go and do something else. Because you don't want to get it wrong. Oh, there's some really interesting noises now. Excuse the machinery noises in the background. Yeah, you don't want to get it wrong. So when there doesn't seem to be any results in the direction that you're going in, you think, you know, I'll try something else, and it continues. And it's very hard to learn the difference between persistence and staying the course, and then a closed door which it's time to move on from. So I think that's why it pays to take the time to like to go within and find out, firstly, what your values are, your core values, and what sort of changes as well you want to help facilitate in the world. Because in all honesty, many times the vehicle you use or the job role you like have to help people could be one of a number of ways that you can find purpose and align with the mission, like your soul mission that you have during your time here. So it could be, like you teach people in a group, or you teach people one-to-one, or it could be, between self-employed and employment. It doesn't necessarily matter what it is, what that vehicle is that you're doing to achieve your purpose, as much as you've got your core values and you can follow that path. I think sometimes we get too caught up in the details. And sometimes the simplest thing to do, but also the hardest, is to just get out of the way. Who knows what exciting noises we will have next week or next fortnight, I don't know. But some of the upcoming topics I will be discussing on the podcast are coming out of the spiritual closet. That's a nice meaty one, isn't it? I think I'm half in, half out at the moment. I came out, then I went back in because it was all a bit much, and now I'm just sort of hanging somewhere half out. So spirituality, wellness, motherhood, all that good stuff, minimalism, and lots more stuff really. Obviously a bit of stoicism, I think, but loads more topics like that. Anything to kind of improve and self-growth. So if you want to catch future episodes of the podcast, then please subscribe via the email list or our YouTube channel. And let me know if you pivoted as well. Did it work out for you? Or maybe it led to opportunities you didn't expect. Let me know, please, because I want to know. So thanks for sharing and being part of the network. And I will see you soon.